the end for him to answer live. If it's a question for me and it's a really quick answer, I don't mind typing it into the chat, but probably I'll just keep track of what your questions are and scroll through. I'll answer it because I speak a lot faster than I type. So that's the way that one works. Why don't we, it's 40 participants, not a whole lot. So could some of you give us a hi, just a hello in the chat so we know you can hear us? All right, we're starting. We're doing all right with audio. All right, terrific. And like I said, you can use the chat questions, but keep in mind that some of what might be on your mind, especially about the supply chain major, might be part of Professor Kopacki's presentation. So give him a chance. And we've got all the time in the world to host your questions after the fact. Professor Kopacki, did you want to get started?
I will get started. Thank you, Kirsten, for your introduction. Let me first of all thank you and Ron for helping, and my student also, Katerina. She is going to be signing in shortly, I guess. She can help answer questions as well. So thank you for the opportunity, everyone, to speak with you tonight. I know it's been an interesting last few weeks for all of you. Here you get accepted into a great school like Rutgers, Rutgers Business School, and then a lot of unbelievable things have happened. So we're all adjusting, all working together to get through this. But we hope this evening to answer questions that you might have about our supply chain major. It's a major that I'm pretty familiar with. I ran a supply chain organization for many years. And so after I did that, I actually started teaching at Rutgers 10 years ago. So I have a lot of experience in the area, and I think I can give you a pretty good idea what the major is all about and why I like it so much. So I'm going to shift over to a little presentation I put together for you. And it's a PowerPoint. It shouldn't take too long. And hopefully you are seeing this on your screens. Let's see here. Does everybody see the first slide called Rutgers Business School Supply Chain Management?
Not yet, Dan. Did you hit the share button?
Maybe I didn't do that, Ron. Maybe
okay, yeah. Remember, you need that share button down below.
Yeah. Let me find that guy.
Okay. It's a square with an arrow pointing up.
Yes. Okay. Yep. There it is.
Okay. Looks like we're getting there.
Okay.
We'll tell you, it's not showing you on my screen, but it should pop up in a second. Still not there yet.
There, I see something.
Okay. Kirsten, are you seeing it? I'm not seeing it yet.
I do have it on my screen.
Yeah, I muted myself. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, it came up. It came up. We're good.
Okay. So again, what I would like to do today with all of you is to answer questions, but I just want to go over 4 items here in my presentation. I'm going to just briefly tell you what supply chain management is all about. I'm going to talk a little bit about why you should consider it as a major. And then I'll tell you a little bit about the Rutgers Business School Supply Chain Curriculum, and then, of course, leave you with our key message as to why this is something of great value to you. So I'm going to kind of go through the slides one by one. I'm going to the second slide now. So what's a supply chain? Now, these slides I actually took out of a course, an intro course that we use. I'm going to move quickly through this. And I'll preface this by saying that if you've been paying attention, any of you, to what's going on with all of the coronavirus. Hello? Okay. If any of you have been paying attention to the news.
So Dan, if I could just cut in for a second. We're hearing some of your conversations. You guys need to move your mics, please, over to the right. All right. Make sure that you have a red microphone with a slash through it, because we're getting some conversations over Professor Kopacki's presentation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten. So what I was trying to convey to you is that if you've been watching what's going on with the coverage for the coronavirus, uh, the word supply chain seems to come up very frequently. It's just something that if you haven't paid a lot of attention to the subject of supply chains, now that we're into this discussion about the availability of equipment and material and ventilators and masks and all, you're hearing a lot about supply chain. So it's an important aspect of everything at this point. So what's a supply chain? Well, it's part of doing business. It's what companies do. They produce products, they produce services, and each has a supply chain. And in the context of how we teach the course, we kind of break it down into several areas. But we understand that suppliers supply product to manufacturers. Manufacturers produce items or services, and then they sell those items eventually to the end customer. So a supply chain can be a pretty complex series of events, or it could be a rather simple series of events. And supply chains exist in all organizations, whether they be corporations or small private companies, or for profit companies or not for profit. Supply chains are really everywhere. So I'm moving to the next slide, and this is sort of a busy slide. But I selected this slide only to point out to you that for a supply chain to exist, you have to connect it. It has to be connected from the very beginning to the very end. And if you go to the left side of the slide, you see the raw material supplier. And then you have intermediate suppliers, and then you have finished goods suppliers, and then you have the manufacturer. And moving right across the slide, it eventually ends up where you and I go to a store, or you and I make a purchase of some kind, or provide some kind of service. So it's a connection of various folks, various people, various enterprises working together to provide products and services. You'll see in the middle of the slide all of the logistical aspects where product moves. It could be in warehouses, it could be on trucks, it could be on railroad cars or through the air, all kinds of logistical aspects as the product is moving from the left side of the slide to the right side of the supplier. So these are the links that we talk about in supply chain. And so then when you go to my next slide, the third slide where it says, what is supply chain management? Well, if you understand what a supply chain is, then our job is to manage all of those individual portions of the supply chain. So it's a coordination effort. It's a networking effort. It's an effort to bring all of these things together so that we create some kind of value, so that it's being done collaboratively, it's being done efficiently, effectively, and in a cost-conscious way. So what I'd really like you to remember then, at the bottom of that slide, in brown, it says, supply chain management is the way business gets done. It's the way business gets done. So it's the execution of that process. So that's what supply chain and supply chain management is all about. My next slide, here I just want to show you kind of like the cutting edge stuff. If you look at this slide, there's a lot of words on here. You've probably seen a lot of these words. These are technologies and innovations that we're surrounded with these days in business. So you see things like robotics, and you see things like just in time, and you see machine learning, very common these days, Six Sigma, artificial intelligence. These are all the various technologies that we use in supply chain, apply them to products and services, and we try to make everything as efficient as possible for the benefit of the ultimate customer. So all of these areas are areas that we deal with in our supply chain courses and in our various curriculums, and it's pretty much everything that's going on around you. So we're pretty much cutting edge on all of this stuff. So next slide. At the top it says the talent shortage. Is there a talent shortage in supply chain? And the answer is yes. We have closely looked at the needs of our economy, and we have come to a startling conclusion. We don't have enough folks that are interested in supply chain on an annual basis. Now, the statistics tell us that The country needs about 270,000 supply chain people every year. And colleges like Rutgers, we graduate a lot, but we're not nearly graduating enough to satisfy the need. We're always lagging behind. So whether it's in the area of planning, purchasing, strategic sourcing on the left side of the slide, or whether it's in the center areas of manufacturing, operations management, risk management, or on the right side of the slide in customer service and delivery, we need more people in supply chain. Going to the next slide then, what does that mean for you as a college student? Well, you're going into college, you're going to spend 4 years here. What does it mean? Well, I think what we're trying to communicate to you is that it's a pretty bright future for supply chain graduates. We need you. We need folks that are interested in this area. Business is expanding, hopefully get over the virus and we'll have expansion. And at the very bottom of the slide, what this means for you potentially is that you have a great opportunity to get a job with a degree in supply chain management. And that's been our experience at Rutgers for sure. It's a great opportunity for jobs. So what do we specifically do here in our department? So we're in the supply chain management department of Rutgers Business School, a great business school, one of the best business schools in North America, in fact, even recognized around the world. So what do we do that's a little bit special or a little bit different for you, the supply chain major? Well, this slide kind of demonstrates that, because what we do for you twice a year, we conduct our very own Supply Chain Management Career Expo. It's kind of like a career fair, but it's special because the only students that are allowed to attend the career fair are supply chain majors, and the recruiters that come looking for talent, they are specifically looking for supply chain majors. So it's a beautiful arrangement. We have students with supply chain interest, and we have companies that are looking for supply chain specialists. And we do this twice a year. We do it in the fall, and we do it again in the spring. And I just listed some of the companies that typically come to our expo. They're companies that you all know, the Bristol Myers and J&J and UPS and Campbell Soup and Merck, all of the big companies, as well as a lot of small companies too. In the fall, we have usually about 80 companies that show up for the expo, and in the springtime, we usually have about 40 to 50 companies, and they're actively recruiting for our supply chain students. So whether it's a full-time job or a co-op or an internship, it's a great opportunity for our students. So I'd like to let you all know that that's something that we do above and beyond, and it's extra, and it's a great benefit. Now, more specifically, in the area of co-ops and internships, this is an area that I am deeply involved with. I'm the director of this program for the supply chain department. And unlike any of the other departments at Rutgers Business School, we actually we encourage you, in fact, as part of our curriculum, that you work either a co-op or a supply chain internship while you're at Rutgers Business School. And we will reward you for that. If you work a co-op, which is working full-time for the fall or the spring semester, we'll award you 6 supply chain credits. Or if you work an internship, which might be over the summer or perhaps part-time during the fall or the spring semester, we will reward you 3 supply chain credits. So here we're actively encouraging you to have a working experience while you're going to college, and we reward you with academic credits. And our department by far has the most students working co-ops and internships for academic credit in the Rutgers Business School. So it's part of our curriculum. It's something we really think is important. So then the next slide is titled, well, what does that job opportunity finally look like? So we pulled up some information for you that I think is very, very important. Based on our experience, at least in the last couple of years, when you get to graduation, so you've put 4 years in, you're graduating, in our case, 75% of our students that are getting their diplomas already have full-time employment. And if you go 3 months beyond that into the summer, 92% of our students have jobs in supply chain. That's a pretty good record. And some statistics there we pulled up, average starting salaries around $60,000 a year, not including bonuses and that type of thing. And if you go down the road 3 to 5 years, the average supply chain manager is making around $84,000, $85,000 a year. So you're in a pretty good position from that point of view. So it's a great major in terms of opportunities for advancement and employment, etc. And then finally, I put this slide in only because, well, I put this in for two reasons, actually. So I'm going to, first of all, you see this slide about the undergraduate curriculum, 24 credits. So once you get past all of the preliminary courses at Rutgers Business School, and Kirsten can describe them to you better than I, but there are some preliminary courses, I think to about 50, 54 credits worth of preliminary courses. You get into your junior year, now you're going to be specializing in supply chain. And in our program at that level, the junior and senior year, we have 5 required courses for a total of 15 credits. And you can see down, a little ways down there where it says co-op in supply chain, internship in supply chain, or also industry client projects. That's what I was talking about a few minutes ago here, where we want you to get one of those opportunities to work in industry. So that's part of our curriculum. Part of our 15 credit required curriculum. Easy to say, right? Curriculum. And then below that, we have our electives. So we have 3 credit electives and a whole bunch of them. And so the total credits that you would earn with a supply chain degree would be 24 credits. And then I'm going to brag now. I'm going to brag because in the yellow box, I want to point out to you that our supply chain program here at Rutgers Business School is ranked number 2 in North America. So Gartner does all kind of surveys. They rate all of the colleges, all of the universities, all of their programs. And I'm very proud to say I'm proud to be a member of this organization because we are ranked second best in North America for undergraduate supply chain management. And so that's a really, really good thing. So my last slide's real simple. So what's the key message for you? I think you should consider supply chain management either as primary major or secondary major. It's very desirable. Makes a lot of sense. If you like business, it's a great way to start. And as you can tell, I loved doing it when I was doing it all those years, and now I love teaching it. So that's kind of my story for you. How did I do, Kirsten? Did I deliver that okay?
Absolutely. You delivered it wonderfully. So we'll see what kind of questions come in via the chat.
Let's see.
There was a question about how many students declared supply chain last year. I mean, I have an idea of how many students declare every year their first major. It's usually in the sophomore class. So it's somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 students that decide what their first major is going to be among the sophomores. We have 6 majors at RBS, and I can say for certain that supply chain gets more than 1/6 of that pie.
Oh yeah.
I have the exact numbers. I have the exact number if you want.
Do you? Okay.
Yep. So supply chain represents 21% of our majors. We have this includes first and second majors, I think. So we have about 4,700 majors, and we're about 21%. So Kirsten, you're right. It's more than 1/6 of the 6 majors. So it is. I would say, I'm looking at the list here, it is the second most popular behind
Yes.
finance.
Right.
Yep.
And then tied for third place would probably be accounting and bait. So supply chain, thanks no doubt in part to the successful co-op and internship program, right? They both quite a high percentage of students that have landed a job by the time they graduate because of that program. Other questions that we're getting, Professor, let's see. Why do you think that supply chain management at Rutgers is ranked number 2? How did RBS get that ranking?
Well, we work hard to get that ranking, but I think our secret is real simple. If you look at our faculty, it's kind of split between the academic side and the practical side. And what I mean by that is I think we have about 60 faculty members altogether. Half of them are your full-time academic type professors, and the other half are like myself, folks that have done it. We've been in industry, we've done all that stuff, we have practical experience. When you come to our classes, we tell it like it is. We'll give you the textbook, we'll give you the academics, we'll give you the theory, and then we'll tell you what really happens out there. So it's a nice combination. And we have been doing it that way for a while now. It's effective. Students like that approach, and I think that gives us really high marks compared to other schools, other universities that teach supply chain. We just have most of both.
Mm-hmm. So you might be able to contribute to this question a little bit too. Is it common for students to double major in supply chain and finance? Yeah, I would say that's not an unusual combination, but there's no such thing as an appropriate combination. If the department interests you, then do the double major. It's actually easier to double major in two business disciplines in the business school than it would be to, say, consider economics or something, arts and sciences as your second major. And the reason for that is once you get through all of the pre-business courses, like the economics and the calculus and the stats course, you move on to a common set of business core classes. It's 12 classes that everybody has to take no matter what your major is going to be. So, and then after you finish the business core, which is 35 credits, you move on to the top of the pyramid, which is 21 credits or 24 credits in your chosen major, right? So if you pick a second major, you're only committing to the top credits, the top of the pyramid, another 21 or 24, because once you complete the business core, obviously it's good for all of your majors. So for another 21 credits, you could have a finance major on top of a supply chain major, all right? And 21 credits, just so you can kind of benchmark this, thinking about opportunity costs, it would cost you about 18 credits, right, to do a standard minor in the School of Arts and Sciences. For 21 additional credits on top of your supply chain major, you could have a complete finance. So that's a nice perk. Another question, is there a possibility to make $1 right out of college? All right, I like that you're thinking big. That's a good thing. Professor, do you want to address that?
I didn't catch the question, Kirsten. Give it.
Is there a possibility to make over $100,000 right out of college, right out of undergrad?
Anything's possible, I guess. Sure, robbing banks. No, it's certainly possible, but unlikely. It would be unlikely to start with a six-figure salary. But I can tell you that there are a lot of six-figure salaries in supply chain.
Mm-hmm. But that's usually after a few years' experience, correct?
Oh, yeah. When I used to hire supply chain managers, procurement managers, logistics managers back in the day, they're all making over 100,000. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. That was a while ago. So, yeah.
What's the most beneficial dual major, second major for supply chain? Can you think of anything that are more beneficial than others?
Well, the one I see all the time is finance. More frequently than any other, by far, it's a dual major of supply and finance. That's very common. Right? Students seem to like that combination. Yeah, it's a good.
Yeah,
it's interesting because in supply chain we actually have our own finance course as well. But I do see a lot of the dual majors that way. Yes.
And Kirsten, the course that I teach, Treasury Management, I think it used to count as a double dip for supply chain majors. I don't know if it still does. So there are some courses that do that on occasion. Is that correct?
Yeah, you get the most double dips between, and of course, students are only allowed to have one period. You only get to count, say, an elective one time between the two majors. If you find another course that also counts for those two majors, you don't get a double dip again.
Yeah.
But marketing has a few, I think, that are on both lists. Yeah. So someone wants to know if you can double major in accounting and supply chain. Absolutely. There isn't a combination that you couldn't do. So you could certainly double major in accounting and supply chain. Just know that accounting, like supply chain, is among the higher credit majors in RBS. So in other words, once you do the business core, after the business core, it's either like another 21 or 24 credits at the top of the pyramid. Accounting's 24, and so is supply chain. So you're just picking two majors that are one course higher, one course more in terms of how many courses you have to do to complete the major. But that's something you could certainly do. Supply chain, let's see, I just scrolled up too fast. Supply chain and bait versus supply chain and finance. I'm not sure what your question is. Did Katerina answer it? Jay, if you wanted to maybe elaborate on what exactly you're asking there. Jay Young asked supply chain and bait versus supply chain and finance. Are you asking us which is better? It's like, I think that would be, we'd probably throw that question back at you. It kind of, it depends on what you want to do.
Right.
Professor, do you have any thoughts about it?
I agree. I think a lot of it depends on the student's interests, but they're both good. I see Katerina's on. Hello, Katerina.
Good job answering questions.
Yeah, thanks for being on with me. One of my best students.
So Kritika is asking, how many internships co-ops do supply chain majors usually have had by the time they graduate? So I think, because supply chain is the only major in the business school that actually requires you to have something practical, part of your major, some kind of an experiential based something. So you are required to have at least a 3-credit internship as part of the major, but there are students that do more. So you can count, you need to do as little as 3 credits toward the major, but you can count as many as, is it 6 credits?
We allow 6 credits for the supply chain major, but Rutgers Business School actually allows a total of 9 . So
yes, three more credits that would be like general elective credits. So
yes.
You can easily do like a 6-credit co-op and still be eligible to do one more internship for a total of 9 credits between those 2 experiences.
Correct.
And all of those credits would count for graduation, but only 6 of those 9 credits count inside your supply chain major.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain the double major a little bit? Is there, I lost the question. Is there a primary or secondary major, or do both majors hold the same weight? You kind of have to tell us which one is your primary major. Like, you get to decide, how it reads on your transcript and maybe which group you want to graduate with when we have our convocation ceremony. So you get to kind of decide what your first major is. Okay. Neither one has greater weight in terms of classes counting for or anything like that, but you kind of get to decide in terms of your final transcript and also diploma which is the primary major. Sometimes students switch it. They might declare supply chain second and then flip it so that supply chain is major number 1 and management is major number 2. Should you go to the career fair as a freshman? I think it's a good idea to go. Are your expos, because that's different than the Office of Career Management's career fairs, Professor, are your supply chain expos open to freshmen or sophomores and up only?
Well, you have to be a supply chain major, so I guess the answer is no. You can't be a freshman.
Okay.
But they're only and you have to declare your major. So if you declared in your sophomore year, you can come to our expos. Yes.
Right, because in the business school, our students declare early, but they don't declare as early as freshman year. You're still working on pre-business freshman year. But if you declare in October of your sophomore year and you declare supply chain, that would make you eligible for their supply chain expos.
That's
but
right.
The career fair in the business school, we do encourage freshmen to go. We get it that that most of the employers that come to our career fairs, for the Office of Career Management in the business school, we get that those employers are not looking to hire freshmen yet, but it's kind of nice to do a dry run, suit up and go to the career fair and get an idea of the lay of the land, what it's like to be at a career fair, so that when you really are actively shopping for an internship during your sophomore year, you've kind of been there, done that. You know what to expect coming into the career fair. You're not as nervous. You don't feel quite as unseasoned. So our freshmen right out of the gate are welcome at the Rutgers Business School career fairs. But the supply chain expos, you do have to be declared, which means you would be a sophomore or up before you went to the supply chain expos.
Correct.
Let's see. Is there a specific type of computer or laptop used by students that works best with the curriculum and supply chain? Is there anything that you recommend?
I'm not aware of any. I see when I teach, I see all kind of laptops. Doesn't seem to matter.
Maybe the correct answer to that is whichever one mom and dad are willing to give you for graduation, something like that.
Yeah.
And I have parents shooting daggers through the screen. Yeah. Although that's pretty common, right? To send them off to college with a new laptop. So I would recommend going to the career fair. Oh, thank you, Katerina. When you're able, going as a freshman. Right, it's not going to get you an internship, Katerina, right, but it helps build exposure and experience and decrease your nervousness when you go sophomore year and you're really hoping to score an internship. How common is it for supply chain majors to get a master's degree or some sort of further education? Could you address that, Professor?
Yeah, I can. So, in fact, I just had an inquiry today from one of our students, and he's debating whether he should stay in school or go out and work. There's no right or wrong answer here. I personally, I like the idea of once you've completed your undergraduate degree, my preference is to go out, start working, and maybe pursue that master's degree at nighttime. A lot of times, companies will pay. They will pay you for to go to school to get a master's degree. Now it's hard, you're working all day long, you're going to school at night, but it can be done. And I'm a great believer in trying to do both. So I'd say that's a pretty common way our students do it.
Sometimes not getting a master's right after undergrad helps you fine tune what the heck you want to get a master's in.
Sure.
There is often the benefit that the employer will offer some kind of tuition reimbursement, which is nice. Let's see, what metropolitan areas do most graduating supply chain students end up in? Is there concentration?
Well,
everywhere.
Yes, in this area, it's obviously going to be the New York, Philadelphia, Washington, Northeast, very, very common. Although a lot of our students, when they get recruited, they're out in Texas, they're out in Seattle, they're in San Francisco. It depends on the companies, but I'd say most of them wind up in this geographical area.
Someone's asking about common dual major combinations in the business school. I would say supply chain and marketing, supply chain and finance, finance and accounting. Any other combination that you think is common, Katerina?
I don't know. I think the way I replied to the question was supply chain can actually go with a lot of different majors if you want to do a combination for it. I think the good thing is because it's so versatile in the classes that you're able to take, both as electives and when you're doing it in required classes, that you see the commonality combinations of finance. You see it sometimes done with accounting. The only thing that I recommend with accounting is accounting does have a graduation requirement of 150 credits, and that you just probably have to be a little bit more wary of when you walk in, knowing that if you did want to add on the supply chain major, how would that affect? That actually might end up helping with hitting the 150 credits, if you were to do a combination of the double major. But again, with like management, with marketing, I think there's a lot of really interesting combinations that you can do with it. So there is no like perfect combination. It really depends on what you're interested in.
Actually, accounting doesn't require 150 to graduate. It's just that you can't sit for the CPA exam without.
Right. My apologies. Yeah.
So, if you finished your 120 credits and you've met all of your accounting major requirements, bye-bye, we're going to graduate you. But students find a reason to stay so that they can get to the 150, like declaring a second major. So they do a super senior year so that they can achieve 30 additional credits in the area of supply chain and then have their required 150 college credits to sit for the CPA exam. So, because really, I'm sure most accounting majors, if you're not going to become a CPA, like, then what did I just do this for 4 years for? So most students are trying to find a way to get to the 150. And one way you can do that is to stay an extra year and do a second major. Someone is asking if double majoring affects how quickly you graduate. I think that depends on how early in the game you decide on your second major. If you decide to do a second major and it's already December of your senior year, well, yeah, you're probably not graduating on time. But for the most part, with some good planning, those students graduate in the same 4-year time frame as everyone else. Because remember, once you finish business core, it applies to all of the majors. When you commit to a second major in RBS, you're only committing to another 21 to 24 credits in that specific department. So it really depends on how early on you realize you wanted to do that major. With some good planning, it's doable. You might have some semesters that are heavy on credits, like 18. You might want to take a summer course or two just to make sure you do graduate on time. But it is certainly doable. You're probably not going to have a light senior year where you decide to take a blow-off course. Hey, I'm going to take basic acting and see how that goes. So you're going to have to be very applied and a good planner, just to make sure you get everything done on time. Is Amazon the largest employer of supply chain graduates? Would you say that's true, Dan?
Oh my, they're big. I mean, especially now with the virus situation. Yeah, they're huge. Are they the biggest? I'd have to think about that. I mean, there's just so many companies that rely on supply chain. Perhaps, perhaps, I mean, let's not discount UPS and a few of the other delivery services, but they're big. Yeah.
Right. Big pharma, I imagine, too.
Oh yeah, for sure, pharma, no question about it.
Right. Let's see. Amazon, let's see. That was Katerina responding. Are there jobs on Wall Street for supply chain majors?
Oh yeah, sure. So it's not most people don't think about it, but there are a lot of opportunities on Wall Street, working for Goldman or Morgan Stanley or some of the big investment banks or even the commercial banks. There are opportunities because in the back office, guess what? They are buying products and services left and right. So yes, absolutely. They're no different than any other company. They're on the service side, and we're buying things and distributing things. And yes, absolutely.
Is supply chain strong enough to stand by itself without double majoring? Professor?
Of course, of course. I mean, most of my students are supply chain majors, and some of them are dual majors, but it's a powerful major. Trying to remember the number of, I guess we have like 1,200 supply chain students right now between the two campuses. So got a lot of supply chain majors at Rutgers, lots.
Does the supply chain major or RBS, do we help with finding these required co-ops or internships?
Well, we have the career fairs and we have the various opportunities to help you along the path. Ultimately, you have to land the co-op, you have to land the internship, you have to get the employment under your belt. So we may help, we might give you some pointers, but it's basically your responsibility to get that job and to be competitive and to land it.
How do you expect the emergence of artificial intelligence to affect supply chain management as a career? How will you prepare us for AI and technology in general?
So we're developing courses in AI and machine learning as we speak. I know that the curriculum committee is putting together courses right now for the fall that are highly involved with all the new technologies, particularly the AI situation. It's going to be an intriguing area. It's spooky actually when you think about it, but the whole aspect of AI and the whole decision-making process, how manufacturing is done and what decisions are made and the planning process associated with it. AI is going to play a big part in supply chain, no question about it. It already has, but it'll be getting bigger and bigger all the time.
Okay, so how many classes would you have to take for a double major as opposed to just one major? Now, as I answer this question, I'm talking about just double majoring inside the business school, because if you decided to commit to something like, I don't know, economics at the School of Arts and Sciences, you're looking at 36 credits. So that would normally be, that's 12 classes, right? But you already took Introduction to Micro and Macroeconomics for us as part of your pre-business studies. So, now we're down to 10 classes. So that if you pick something like economics, you're talking about an additional 10 classes. If you picked supply chain, if something else had been your first major in RBS, supply chain is an additional 8 classes. All right. And again, economics is a lighter major at arts and sciences because, we're chopping 2 courses off of it. You already took Introduction to Econ, for the business school because we required you to. But most majors at arts and sciences, you're talking about committing to another 12 classes, right, to do a second major. Yes, career fairs are open to transfer students. Absolutely. Basically, any student in the business school. We have our own office of career management, by the way. So you guys as business school students can take advantage of the university's overarching CES. It used to be Career Services. Now they call themselves CES for Career Exploration and Success. So you guys get to take advantage of their programs, but in the business school, our Office of Career Management is only for business school students. So that's nice, right? The employers that are coming in and they only want to shop for the accounting majors or only the supply chain majors, they're only talking to you guys at our career fairs. Our career fairs are exclusive to business school students only. All right, so you get to double dip. And our fares are open to transfers, freshmen, everybody in the business school. Let's see, Katarina answered that question. Is supply chain major? Where can I review this recording once it's over? Right from probably the same page that you navigated to us from. We have, I'll look for when the professor's answering another question, I'm going to find the website again and I can just paste it here into the chat, but it's like an open house landing page at the business school's website. So I can just find it again and paste it into the chat, okay? Because the recordings, by the way, it'll take a while, about 24 hours before we can even retrieve our recording from WebEx. And then we have to get it to our IT folks to post. So, so give it a few business days before you're looking for the recording, okay? Let's see, Katarina answered that. Is it possible to minor in supply chain? We don't offer minors in RBS to business school students. We have 2 minors in RBS, and they're for those students that are outside the business school. So we have a minor in business administration and a minor in entrepreneurship, but we don't have minors in our individual majors for business school students. We have concentrations. A concentration would be 3 classes. My family just let the dog in here. I'm not sure why that happened. Maybe they're getting tired of her.
Kirsten, it's Ron. I found that website if you want me to chat it.
Oh, wait, you want to just add it to the chat?
Yeah, I'll add the recorded sessions to the chat. When you look on this, everybody, just scroll down. You'll see the recorded session.
We'll have it at the end of the chat. All right. The next, let's see, what question are we on? So minors, again, we just have a couple of minors, and they're from students outside RBS. Who didn't want to come, or either perhaps didn't get into the business school. That's why we offer a minor in business administration. For an accounting major, can a transfer student graduate in 2 years? You should be able to. All right, the accounting major, it is 57 or 60 credits. So it'll be tight, assuming 15 credits every semester, but you should be able to graduate in 2 years. Let's see. So one major, I would need 120 credits to graduate, but with a dual major, would I need around 140, 150? No, the answer is to graduate. It doesn't matter how many majors you have. Still, to graduate with your undergrad degree, it's 120 credits, period. But many of our students who go on to complete a second major do end up with more than 120. So it's an issue of completing the requirements for your major, and also reaching 120 credits, and also the liberal arts requirements. But I would say most students who double major, they do get higher than 120. They're at like 130 or 140. And if accounting is one of your majors, good for you. Then you just got closer to the 150 that you need to sit for the CPA exam. Let's see. What do you consider to be some of the most interesting industries or companies that would need supply chain majors?
Oh, well, the one that's getting all the attention now, of course, pharmaceuticals. Oh, my goodness, with this virus situation, pharma is really huge. You want to also keep in mind the defense industry, always important, very, very important to the country. Those two jump out at me all the time. And of course, let's not forget just our retail sectors. We're going to try to get this economy going again. That means we have to go back to the malls and to Macy's and Penny's or whatever. So the whole retail industry relies very heavily on all aspects of purchasing and operations and logistics. Almost, when I showed you that slide about, what is supply chain? It's how business gets done. Well, it's how business gets done. So it's all of the above.
I think I already addressed this question. So is there a difference in credits for graduation between single and dual majoring? Now, to get your bachelor's degree at Rutgers, except for engineering, a little higher, bachelor's degree at Rutgers is 120 credits. It's the fact that you picked a second major that might bump you up over 120. So let's say if you change your mind about that second major and you decide, I'm not going to complete this, then we're back to, as long as you completed the requirements for major number 1 and you reach 120, all right, then that's it. All right. So it's 120 across the board to graduate. So many of our students end up with more though, because they come in with so many AP credits or because they pick secondary majors, minors, stuff like that. Additional classes, if you're double majoring in BAIT as your secondary major, so if BAIT is the second major you declare, that's going to add another 21 credits, 7 classes. Right? Most of the majors in RBS are like that. It's either an additional 7 or an additional 8 on top of the business core. The business core is just a common set of classes that everybody in RBS takes, no matter what major you're going to declare. Right? There's a set of core classes that we feel you need no matter what your major is. Does everyone see the link here from Professor Richter about where the recorded sessions are? We're good? Let's see. Yes, there's the session on the 18th. Who's doing the 18th? That's BAIT, right? That's the BAIT major. Ron?
Yeah, I have to unmute. Yes,
That's
that's
Lodge on the 18th, right?
Yeah, at 10:30 in the morning. Correct.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in the business of fashion. Would supply chain be a good major for me?
Oh my goodness, we have a course on fashion. I never took it. Now I know the professor that teaches it. Katerina, do you know anything about the fashion course?
I have heard of it before. I think I definitely did hear good things about it, saying that it was interesting. It's different than the usual types of supply chain classes you hear about. Because it'd be specific to handling how the fashion industry wants to, say, handle logistics, handle marketing, handle distribution and warehousing, things like that. And so there's a lot of more nitty-gritty things behind just the outward fashion that we see a lot of times. And I think that class would be a really good introduction into, maybe possibly getting a master's in business fashion later on if you were interested in that. So supply chain would be a good foot in the door for that.
Sure would.
Do you recommend double majoring with a minor, per se, music or poli-sci? So 8 semesters in 4 years, but there's no reason why you couldn't. I think it makes your resume that much more interesting to have a minor in music or poli-sci, something like that. Certainly anything that's offered at the School of Arts and Sciences, you're allowed to declare a second major in that field. You're allowed to minor in that field, but the other way around is not true. In other words, you couldn't go and decide to enroll at the School of Arts and Sciences and do a second major in finance. You have to be matriculated in the business school to declare any of our majors as your first or second major. But yeah, we have students that major and minor in all kinds of stuff that is not in the business school: music, poli-sci, history. What classes are in the business core, and can APs replace any of those classes? No. You might be thinking of pre-business. So there's think
6.
curriculum is sort of being like a pyramid. I talk about it that way all the time. So pre-business classes are the courses like micro and macroeconomics, Calc 1, Intro to Stats for Business, Computer Applications for Business, and Financial Accounting. So if you have a 4 or a 5, get credit for Intro to Micro Econ, Intro to Macro Econ, then sure, absolutely, you have satisfied some of your pre-business. But the business core are actually business school classes. They're classes like, after Financial Accounting, Managerial Accounting, several BAIT classes, Statistical Methods in Business, Management Information Systems, Operations Management, Business Law, Business Policy and Strategy, all of the intro courses. So you'll have to take Intro to Management, Intro to Marketing, Intro to Supply Chain, Intro to Financial Management, Management Skills. So that it's a basis of 12 courses that make up the business core. Those are courses that we strongly feel no matter what your major is, you're all going to need those courses. Also Business Forum. We have a professional development class that makes up part of the core. So there is in the AP program that could replace those, but AP credits could replace things like, with a 4 or a 5, they could replace things like Calc 1, Intro to Microeconomics, Intro to Macro. By the way, this was very recently, just at the end of last week, sort of institutionally decided that if you are sitting for AP exams this May, that we are going to treat those 4s and 5s just like it was a 4 or 5 in any other year. We have heard that it's going to be a shorter exam, administered remotely, of course, and some units might not be covered in as much depth. But we're going to treat those 4s and 5s like the other year. So you would still get your AP credit even if you sat for the exam in 2020. You may decide down the road that was a mistake. And you know what? I think I really need to take Calc 1 or Calc 2 here at Rutgers because I want to be a math minor. And then that's fine. There's ways to forego your AP credits after the fact in favor of taking the course at Rutgers because you don't feel prepared enough for your math minor unless you take Calc 2 here. So there are ways certainly to undo the AP credit if you decide that you don't want to accept it after all. But we are going to award the AP credit for May 2020 exams as if it were any other year. Let's see. So that was the question about APs. Does L'Oreal hire from RBS supply chain management major?
Yes, they do. They're one of our favorites. They love our students, and they do very well. L'Oreal's huge.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How many SAS Core credits do we need to take for the business major? Okay, so the SAS Core, for those of you that aren't familiar, all collegiate schools of business have some kind of general ed system. So the general education requirements for the business school, it's the same one as the School of Arts and Sciences follows. It's called the SAS Core Curriculum. So if you were to take a separate course for each and every requirement, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 classes that you end up taking. So everybody has to do 2 natural sciences, 2 contemporary challenges, 2 arts and humanities, 2 more writing courses beyond Expos writing, and so on and so forth. It is roughly a dozen courses if you took a separate course for every single requirement, but there are ways that you can double dip, and we'll teach you about that when you do your academic planning and advising day in a few weeks. So you could do something like Intro to Environmental Science and get 1 natural science and 1 contemporary challenges out of a course like that. How hard is it to transfer to the business school from arts and sciences? So it's competitive. I see the car industry question too. I'll double back to that. How hard is it to transfer from the business school from arts and sciences? You need a GPA of around 3.1 as a cumulative and partial completion of the pre-business in order to transfer to the business school. So it's certainly doable. We have a lot of students that transfer in from arts and sciences every year. You just have to keep up a good GPA and be mindful of working on the pre-business course while you're at arts and sciences. It's pretty straightforward. Trying to keep up with the questions here. Would you say that the car industry or the aviation industry rely heavily on supply chain?
Yes, it's the core business. It's how you put a car together. It's how you put an airplane together. It's all about supply chain from the aspects of getting in the parts that are assembled, putting them together, delivery. It's the core business of what those companies do. Yeah.
Okay. Dan, when you get a second, can you put your email into the chat, your business school email? Because the question is, are there instructors of supply chain that would drop their contact information below for future questions?
Okay, I'll do that. Or Ron, can you put that on for me?
Yeah, I'll put it in for you. Yep, no
Okay.
problem. Get your email address.
What type of math is required used in supply chain? Well, whether or not it's necessarily used by supply chain, you all have to get through Calc 1. That's on the pre-business course list. So you couldn't even declare your major in supply chain or anything else until you got through Calc 1. We don't require Calc 2 for the business majors. Is there any reason that Calc 2 is useful in supply chain, would you say, Professor?
Probably not. Probably that's unlikely. Actually, the calc there are applications in supply chain, but in the advanced areas, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. All right, car industry, transferring from arts and sciences. If I took dual enrollment classes in public speaking and composition, would I be able to get elective credits? So yeah, I'm going to split that answer. The course in public speaking, you might get credit for the lower level public speaking class at Rutgers, but the composition would only be general elective credits. Basically, the business school, like most of the professional schools in New Brunswick, are very strict on what kinds of dual enrollment credits we accept. The business school limits you to 4 classes, and a lot of them would be for general elective credit, meaning it counts for graduation as opposed to counting for a specific Rutgers course. So examples of courses where we wouldn't give you identical course credit would be like the composition courses, the math courses, the econ courses, stats, computers, basically composition courses and anything on the pre-business list. We wouldn't give you identical course credit, but we would give you general elective credit. So it counts toward graduation. It counts towards your tally of 120. So public speaking would be a probably, and the composition would be for general elective credit only. If I'm transferring from a four-year institution, I just lost that question. Four-year institution, can those credits fill core courses or only pre-business? So if you're transferring from a four-year institution, yeah, you'll get an evaluation of your transcript in terms of how the courses come in. So you probably have a mix. Do you mean SAS? I'm assuming you mean business core. Okay, so your pre-business courses, as long as the syllabus is evaluated and the course is determined to be identical to ours, then you can get pre-business credits from whatever you took at your previous four-year school. But the business core classes, highly unlikely. We would take up to a maximum of 4 business core classes from another four-year school. The syllabus has to be evaluated and the school has to be AACSB accredited. So it's possible. You know, I've seen students transfer a few, like maybe intro to management, intro to marketing. I'm less familiar with whether or not I've seen intro supply chain transfer in from other four-year schools. But I'm not going to shut the door and say it's impossible. Well, you'll have to see when you get your transcript evaluated as a transfer student. But pre-business, more than likely, but again, it's subject to an evaluation. Is there a detailed supply chain curriculum sheet I can find on the RU website? There is. We can paste that into the chat too. Do you know where to find that, Ron?
Already done.
Oh, okay. So you already posted that?
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
all posted. Yeah.
Would a high school summer scholars program in supply chain management be beneficial when starting in the business school? Professor?
Well, it sounds like it ought to be. Do we have any more
I
details?
mean, you'll necessarily get credit for it. I should
Well.
be very clear. So it might be helpful in your major. It doesn't mean we're going to get credit for it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it would be helpful though. Sure.
Right. If I'm transferring from a four-year institution, can those credits fulfill core courses or only pre-business? I think I already addressed that question. So, you could possibly transfer up to 4 business content courses, but that's subject to departmental evaluations of the syllabi that you produce. It's not sort of a one-size-fits-all answer. Like, sure, we always take intro to marketing from four-year schools. It depends. So you'll have to you'll get an evaluation of your transcript when you produce it, and some of those courses are going to be subject to departmental evaluations of the syllabi. But it's possible you might get credit for up to a maximum of 4 business core classes coming in from another four-year school. Let's see. Oh, good. Thanks for pasting that, Professor. We have Professor Klopaki's email. Best combination was supply chain for a double major. I think we talked about that already. The best combination is pick a second major that interests you. There's not necessarily the most complementary major to supply chain. But supply chain and bait, yes, as the students answered, supply chain and bait and supply chain and finance are certainly popular combinations. Also, marketing and supply chain used to be. I don't know if it still is.
You see some of them occasionally, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What would the Rutgers Online Coursera.com specialization count? We don't accept Coursera, to the best of my knowledge. Should freshmen take a Rutgers for supply chain business major? I would say no, not an incoming freshman. We actually discourage incoming freshmen from taking summer session classes because you haven't even gotten here yet. It's not possible to be behind when you didn't start yet. And any incoming freshman wouldn't even be allowed to take intro to supply chain this early. It's pre-business stuff first, followed by your business core classes. So there's really no earthly reason for a freshman to need to take anything in summer session. Save yourself $1,600. Get here first. Enjoy your summer. You've been on quarantine all spring. I hope you get to enjoy a real summer. Get a job, make money, make lots of money. You'll be surprised at how fast the bill adds up on hoodies and delivery pizza. So there's no reason for you to necessarily be starting to take coursework already this summer. Let's see, you can, but you don't have to. I did take a summer session before your freshman year. Okay. Pre-business classes only, right? Well, no, not even pre-business classes. We don't want students necessarily taking pre-business classes. Pretty much the time I bend on this as freshman dean is if you feel behind in math because you placed into, I don't know, intermediate algebra, then we can talk. But for the most part, we don't recommend summer session classes to incoming freshmen. Is it beneficial for transfer students to take summer classes or summer session? Again, not necessarily. I would say wait until you've had your transfer registration day so you can see sort of where the dust settles and what you need. I wouldn't necessarily go committing to summer session just yet, not without consulting with the transfer advisor, who is Tom Moore. Transferring sophomore from RVCC, and I will have the pre-business courses fulfilled by next fall. Would I then focus on completing the business core? Yes. So if all 6 of the pre-business courses are done when you come in, then you can immediately declare your major this summer when you come in for your transfer registration day, and you can start taking business core classes in the fall. That's if all 6 pre-business will be done. I'm a transfer student from a community college. Will my transfer credit eval be completed only after I pay the deposit? That's correct. Because we receive so many applicants, we do not evaluate transfer transcripts until you've actually become an RBS student. What classes do you teach, Professor Klepacki?
This semester, Katerina knows the answer to this one because she's in it. I'm teaching procurement.
All right, seems like you already have a fan. There you go. Did I miss any questions scrolling through these that someone else wants to type at the bottom? Did I inadvertently skip over anyone? Is it possible to enter college as a sophomore directly out of high school if you have enough AP credit? No. So we're still calling you a freshman at least until October. The business school has a pretty high bar for when we would let you reclassify sophomore standing. I could let that happen in October, like in time for registration for your spring classes, if you came in with 30 AP credits, okay, 30. It's a pretty high bar, 30 AP credits coming in or 42 credits by December. And at that point, we would let you reclassify to sophomore standing, but we would not let anyone in September reclassify to sophomore standing, no. Okay. We're going to start with step 1, then step 2, then step 3. So it's easy to get ahead of yourself. Try not to. Katerina, how would you rate your experience as a supply chain major? Did you already answer that?
I'm typing it right now, but it's up to you guys. Do you want me to
go ahead
explain it or?
Go ahead. Uh-huh.
All right. Well, specific to you, for anyone else also listening, I had speaking very personally, I had a very good experience with supply chain management, and again with the Rutgers Business School, just in general. I remember 4 years ago, just being a senior and kind of exploring the option to, what am I going to do coming into freshman year, specifically in business school. What should I major in? What are things that I'm interested in? Supply chain management definitely opened the door towards exploring a whole new world of business that I wasn't fully aware of, coming out of high school. I think that's something that once you take more class and you learn the knowledge of how it works and everything, you see there's a lot of connection that supply chain can make. So I had a very good experience. In addition to a supply chain major, I actually did a biological sciences minor. So early with what Dean started was going on about with how you can also minor in SAS. I absolutely did a lot of SAS classes. I think that's something that also makes the enjoyment more valuable in the sense that you can get a nice diversity of what classes you want to do. Because then you can also see how supply chain works in related to healthcare. That's something that I'm interested in with working as an industry. In terms of anything that I would do differently, I would have loved to take in more elective classes. I took the green purchasing elective. I took service management. I did an individual research under another professor in supply chain. But there were so many other elective classes that I think are really worthwhile to take. And, again, if you have the opportunity to starting in, try to immerse yourself as much as you can, because by the end of it, it all makes for much more well-rounded and wholesome experience for it.
Professor Klepacki, I'm not sure you're doing research, but someone is asking, do you accept high school students to help you with research?
Well, I don't do much research at this stage. I'm more on the practical side of things, the application side, but I don't think so. I think the answer probably not a whole lot of high school students involved in research at Rutgers. I could be wrong. I'm just not aware of it.
I am an ESL student. If I take classes for supply chain business, how will it work for me? So if you're coming in as a freshman, you'll have to take the English test. So if you're saying you were an ESL student at the end of high school, then you'll probably place into our ESL program here. It's called English as Academic Discourse. So, hopefully the intense EAD 1, EAD 2 will help you in terms of, all your supply chain classes and all of your classes. But I don't think, is there a tremendous amount of writing in Intro to Supply Chain?
Not a tremendous amount, no. No.
Yeah, okay. Can junior transfer students do research? Yes, you can. You probably have to seek out the opportunities, with professors that you've enjoyed having. But certainly, sophomores, juniors, and seniors at Rutgers can do research, particularly with the Arresti research program. So yes, upperclassmen and even sophomores can do research. Does RBS need an A for Calc 1 to be able to transfer? No. Basically, anything with a C or better, if you're a transfer student, would come in. We're not looking for you to get an A in Calc 1. A C or better transfers. I think a C minus doesn't transfer. So you don't need to worry about getting an A in Calc 1. Let's see. I'm talking about the transferability of the course. If you're saying you haven't hit the GPA to even be admitted as a transfer, that's a different issue. So maybe you need an A in calculus for that reason, but other than that, you would never ask for an A in calculus from transfer students, no. Katerina, did you see the follow-up question here?
I did. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to address it or you already typed it?
I already sent it in.
Okay. How easy is it to get off of the RBS wait list? When will wait list applicants be notified of their acceptance? I imagine if they're going to go to wait list, that's going to happen pretty soon, actually. What date do we have? Today's the 13th. I imagine that'll probably happen, if it hasn't already. That would happen soon, before May 1st. Sometimes they do take students off the wait list after May 1st. In which case, even though it's past the May 1st deadline, clearly they would allow you to enroll because they let you know, so late that you were off the wait list. But I imagine that there's a good chance you're going to go to wait list this year. Let's see. Are transfer students exempt from the placement test in Rutgers? You are not, unless you have courses transferable for those specific classes. Like basically, you're only required to take a placement test for English writing and placement test for math. So if you're already coming in with a completely transferable Calc 1 course, then we would have no need to make you sit for the math placement test, right? We already know that you're transferring in pre-calc or you're transferring in calc. If you're transferring in pre-calc, we accept your pre-calc course and we already know the answer. You're starting in Calc 1 at Rutgers, so we have no need to make you take the placement test. Same thing for English. If you're transferring in from county colleges, composition 1 and 2, they were totally transferable, then you would not have to take the English placement test. But if you haven't gotten through Comp 1 and 2 at your schools, then yes, you have to take the English placement test. Anything else? Favorite classes? Are there ways high school students can better prepare themselves with extracurricular activities that would help in the business school? None that I can think of. Professors?
I'll chime in here. I think if you get involved in organizations like Future Business Leaders, or DECA, those types of environments, that gives you some aspects of learning different of business, different ways of looking at business. It also helps you develop your soft skills. So any extracurriculars where you can develop the soft skills of communication, the soft skills of leadership, that will be unbelievably important, not just at the business school, but just for your career. So those things, I think, someone told me once they want to do something uncomfortable every day, something that gets them out of their comfort zone. So you should try to do things that get you out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
What are some good certifications for supply chain majors?
Well, we offer a few of them. We have my area, which is in the procurement area, so we'll offer that to our students. We offer something similar in the area of Lean and Six Sigma. We have Excel. There are a lot of professional organizations like project management, so there are others that are available to students if they want to really distinguish themselves.
I'm waiting for someone in my house to answer that. And I think they were waiting for me to answer it. What a surprise. Okay. Do you have any pro tips for incoming freshmen?
Well, I have one tip about college in general. It's like anything else in life. What you get out of it is what it's going to be what you put into it. It's real simple. You know, whatever it is, college or sports or relationships, what you get out is usually what you put in. And so I would go into college with that type of an attitude and give it a maximum 100% effort, and you'll be very pleased with the results.
My tip would be, as someone who brings in 1,000 freshmen every year and has been doing so for 12 years, take it seriously and don't overcommit, socially or in terms of clubs in your first year. By all means, we want you to be involved in some kind of club, but be careful not to join, 3 in the first semester and then decide to pledge a frat or a sorority second semester. It's really important that you get off to a good start. Otherwise, you feel like you're coming from behind. So take it seriously. Get yourself to the library. Keep up with all your classes. Keeping up is probably the best thing you can do for yourself. Once you get a little behind on your syllabi, it's hard to catch up, and it starts to snowball out of control. So, if you got in here, you were clearly a good student in high school. Bring your good habits here. Right, time management, right? Making sure that you devote a certain number of hours every day to studying, so that you're not studying, 16 hours on the weekends. Bring in your good studenting habits to college. When will freshmen be able to take placement tests? Is it available to take in quarantine? Oh, yes, because our placement tests have been online for quite some time. So if you go to your My Rutgers dashboard, 2 of the tabs on your My Rutgers dashboard, one is like required for enrollment, the other one is suggested for enrollment. So under the required for enrollment tab is the placement test link, and that went live already in March. So you can take your placement test remotely. It's been that way for some time. That's not new for this quarantine era. And I recommend that you take your placement test as soon as humanly possible. It's just one less thing to do, something off of your checklist, all right? Another thing you want to do soon is register for your APA Day, Academic Planning and Advising Day, where we kind of take you through the curriculum for your first few semesters. You get to pick your fall course choices. I'm transferring in associate's degree from Brookdale. I still need to take the placement test. If it's a completely compliant associate's degree and you have transferable composition classes on there, 1 and 2, and you have a transferable 4-credit pre-calc or a transferable 4-credit calc, then you wouldn't need to take the math and English placement tests. What are the opportunities for teaching assistantship or work on campus with departments? You guys want to say that?
I can actually speak a little bit on that. So I actually am a TA for 2 RBS courses. The first one is Introduction to Supply Chain Management, and the second is Operations Management. Actually done through the MSIS department. There's a lot of opportunities in terms of being a TA and getting more involved. I think that's one of the reasons why I was able to have such a good experience, is be able to go one step further. And now you had the student experience. Now you also get to have an assistant to the professor and kind of learn more of the nuances of the course and really get to finesse your way through the material a lot more. I think it's definitely worthwhile. In terms of being able to become a TA, I think it depends on the course. It depends on the instructor. I know some instructors do personally reach out. Others have said that, they look based off of student interest, that if you reach out and, you showed consistently, impressive marks in the class and everything like that, and high participation, that it's a worthwhile effort that you've been putting in, I think that's something that they definitely do take into consideration as well. But for becoming a TA and working on campus, whether it be through research, through an internship under a instructor, there's a lot of different things that you can explore and do with. And in terms of timing, still doing a full course load, I think I did the 2 TA positions as well as like 16, 17 course loads, credit course loads per semester. And it definitely is doable. You just have to be very on top of time management. You know, like Dean was saying before, you really do have to take it seriously because it is going to be what you make of it. And all the opportunities that are out there, you just really have to know how to organize and get it together.
Question about the minimum score for receiving AP credit. That would be a 4. 4s and 5s are an AP credit from Rutgers. Accepted at RBS Newark and New Brunswick with 2 programs. Is there anyone at RBS who could help me decide on which major to choose? Someone I could talk to. Okay, so the good news is you weren't really accepted for particular majors. In other words, they probably asked you that on the admissions application because they just like to know what everyone's interested in. But we don't require you to come in as a particular major. In New Brunswick, we consider you pre-business. All freshmen incoming are pre-business. Once you're here, certainly, you can talk to professors, you can talk to the office about, deciding on a major. You have some time. We don't make you declare until the sophomore year. And frankly, let's say you declare, accounting, and you start taking your intro to financial accounting and intro to managerial accounting, and you think, oh my God, this is awful. I can't imagine, continuing to do this for the next 4 years. It's fine. You had to take those courses anyway. They were part of the business core. So sometimes you don't realize is what I'm trying to get at, what you really like until you start pecking your way through the business core classes, and there are 12 of them. You might think that you're an accounting major, but you're actually better suited to be a BATE major or a finance major. So you don't have to know now what your major is. But certainly once you're here, there are plenty of professors and people in the career management to talk to about the major that you're going to select. How do we sign up for APA Day? Okay, so this is also at your my.Rutgers portal. One of the tabs in the required for enrollment is academic planning and advising. And there's a link there. So you go to like a Qualtrics form to sign up. All right. It's also, if you already received your welcome email from me, I sent that out to like 255 students on April 4th, and I'm getting ready to send another one tomorrow to anyone that decided to enroll like from April 3rd forward. Also in the welcome email that I send the link for registering for APA Day. Okay, so that's 2 places. It'll be at your my.Rutgers portal under required for enrollment, and it'll be in the welcome email that I send. Okay, Professor Richter had to leave. Let's see. What are some good ways to network within RBS? Students, you can probably speak to that better than I can. Good networking within RBS.
Networking, I think there's a number of ways you can network at RBS, just because there's a lot of opportunities for you to do so. It comes down to meeting people, and I think in a business setting, that's where you get to experience the highest level of networking and social interactions. The obvious answers would be things such as the career expos, and once you declare yourself a supply chain major, we do have the special supply chain management exposés, one in this fall and one in the spring. So those are as well added on opportunities as a supply chain student. In addition, even just networking with your professors, being an active participant in classes, knowing what's going on in the material, asking questions, reaching out to professors when you have a question, things like that. And that all shows that those are all little ways that you can network and continue to build a relationship within RBS and then outside in industry through the career management, through the supply chain led expos and things like that. Okay.
Is there an MIS major at RBS? We call it the BATE major. So it's the MSIS department, Management Science and Information Systems, but we call the major in New Brunswick the BATE major, Business Analytics and Infotech. And informally, we even call it the BATE department anymore. But yes, we have the MSIS major in New Brunswick as well. We just call it the BATE major, Business Analytics and Infotech. After we pay the $150 enrollment fee, what other steps are required for enrollment? So once you pay the fee, I think it takes like 24 hours before your net ID is activated. And then it's up to you to be following those steps at your required for enrollment tab in your My.Rutgers portal. Okay, so you'll kind of be guided through it, kind of, sort of, but not really. You should be paying attention to your My.Rutgers portal and going through the steps like placement testing, APA day, academic planning and advising, so you can pick your fall courses, your housing. Okay, so there are a number of steps that you need to take sooner rather than later after you pay the fee. So make sure that you keep checking back at your portal. All right. Do transfer students still have to attend NSO overnight? No, nobody has to attend. NSO is New Student Orientation, for those of you who aren't familiar. None of you are attending the NSO this summer. That has gone virtual. No one is going to campus. Rutgers has canceled all on-campus events for the summer. That means camps. That means summer courses. All summer courses are being done virtually, remote delivery. Everything's gone to virtual remote. That includes my APA days. My APA days used to be on campus, not this summer. And even New Student Orientation is going to be delivered in a virtual format. Okay, looking forward to see you all in September, as they say. But in order to make sure that happens, we're just going to keep on going with the social distancing thing on campus. Right? We've been doing it for 4 weeks. What's another 4 months? Yeah, no, I don't say that lightly. It's where everyone's making a sacrifice, right, for the greater good. Any last questions as we approach 8:30 here? Is there a difference between the MSI? It's not MIS. It's MSIS. All right, MIS is actually the course, Management Information Systems. The major is MSIS, Management Science and Information Systems, and the BATE major. I'm experienced in IT, and hence the question. So not really sure if there's that big difference in the MSIS major in Newark and the BATE major in New Brunswick. I think that the courses are not identical, but probably a question for someone in the BATE department. I would recommend like maybe Professor Boros. I don't know his email off the top of my head, but I'm going to type his name in here if you want to do a people search on him from the Rutgers homepage. He might be a good resource in terms of, because he does teach in the BATE department, how the MSIS major and the BATE major in New Brunswick are different, if they are. I will be transferring as a junior. Are there any specific programs you recommend taking as a supply chain major aside from what is required that may help prepare me better for the experience at RBS and in the future? Yeah, I mean, not really. You mean before you come in? No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah, can't think of anything. Have there or will there be any virtual open houses for Rutgers as a whole? Yes, there was a big one on April 4th. And if you go to the undergrad admissions website, they still have a lot of links that you can hook up with at their open house landing page to see different recordings from April 4th that are up online. So yes, there was a huge virtual open house on the 4th, but also they're calling it this season Open House on Demand because they did record so many of the sessions and you can just go watch them from April 4th. Okay. And it's just, you go to the admission website, admissions.rutgers.edu, and look for their open house on demand landing page. Are there international internship opportunities? There are some. I don't think they're plentiful, but there are some. Correct, Professor?
There are an occasional one or two. We always seem to have a few students that are going to work a summer internship, for instance, in a different country. We've done that, sure, for academic credit, absolutely.
Any final questions, folks? We're getting to the point where I'm going to have to sign off. I'm sure the professor might have to also. Going once, going twice.
thank you everyone for participating. It was a really good
Yes.
interactive session.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of great questions. So, and again, if you do commit, once you pay the deposit, go to your, all Rutgers students have like a portal. We call it the dashboard. It's myrutgers.edu. All right. Your My Rutgers portal. And everything is controlled from there. You can find your Scarlet Mail email, check up on your financial aid. And there's 2 particular tabs to pay attention to. Required for enrollment, which is some of the stuff I've been telling you, placement tests and academic planning and advising, and get your housing form in. So within 24 hours of paying the deposit, you should be able to get to your My Rutgers portal to start checking some of that stuff out, okay? It was great to hear from so many of you tonight. And we hope we see you in September.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
All
Katerina.
right, thank you, Professor. Thank you, Katerina, and the
Bye,
other
have a
students
good
for
one.
answering. Appreciate that.
Kirsten, can you stay on real quick for a second with me
Sure.
after everyone leaves?
Oh, one last question. I've been offered financial aid. Does that apply to RU irrespective of any campus I choose? Yes, if it's regular need-based financial aid like FAFSA aid, the answer is yes. When it's a scholarship, sometimes your merit scholarship is particular to what school you decide to enroll in. Like in other words, SAS might offer you more on the scholarship than the business school. But need-based financial aid, the FAFSA stuff, would apply to any school at Rutgers. So, and you're welcome. It was great to see so many of you.
All righty.
Thank you, Katerina.
You did a great
Have
job.
a good one, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, students.
Good job.
Professor, did you need me for something?
Well, no, I just want to mention, so I when we started the program or the session, I hit the record button, and then for about 30 seconds, I did something wrong and it stopped, and then I immediately resumed it. So I just want to let you know there's like a 30-second gap at the very beginning.
All right, I'm sure that's fine.
Not a big deal, I guess, right?
Yeah, no.
All right, well, great, good. Hey, listen, Kirsten, I could never answer all the questions that you answered. Where would I be without you?
You give me too much credit, Professor.
I know, I'm telling you.
This will be mine. I've been bringing freshman classes in since the summer of '09. So
Wow.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Good thing you were with me tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the questions tend to be general stuff, but I got to tell you, as opposed to the other sessions that I've moderated for,
Yeah.
this session is more content-based questions than the others that I moderated.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So nice. It's a hot major, an interesting major.
Yeah, I think so. It's and as I mentioned very early on, if you listen to all this stuff that's on the TV now, all they talk about is the supply chain.
Right. Exactly. All the interruptions in supply chain. Yep.
Yeah.
My husband works for a pharmaceutical, so I'm hearing it all the time. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
well, then adios. Thanks again.
Well, good night and good luck. It was good. And thank you, Katerina.
Thank you guys for having me.
Any of your other peers who were helping answer questions. Appreciate that. Sometimes I couldn't even scroll fast enough to see that you had already answered something. I appreciate your patience.
No, thank you guys for having me. I think it was a really interesting first-time experience to be able to do a virtual open house. But
First time for me too.
a lot of good questions.
Awesome.
A lot of great questions, though.
Excellent.
Very well. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, you guys.
You have a good night.
All right.
guys.
Good night.
Bye-bye.